military cooperation, similar regional goals, geopolitical direction and enemies, cooperation in evasion of sanctions, similar walls of dictatorship, Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea. Yeah, they have some similar understanding of them, social political path and process. Maybe everyone knows this, but I need to say it for that my picture does not look incomplete. We all know that Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea is authoritarian state that have some regional satellites and playing pretty dirty in the politics. Playing by war, hybrid aggression, informational warfare, and playing against democracy and the right of peoples. Yeah, but this way everyone told us to think. But maybe in my analysis, we will change some view on that. Maybe, I'm not sure. They have reasons to act in the geopolitical arena this way. Or maybe not. Maybe it's really only deal on their regimes, you know? From year to year, this issue becomes hot and prevalent again and again. Every time Iran do this stuff against United States, especially after Russian invasion to Ukraine in 2022.
Soleimani has been killed and his bloody rampage is now forever gone.
So their international politics connected. One sets a precedent to the internal stage, the other uses, you know. Iranian issue very complicated, everybody say it, but it's not. Iran's source of terrorism and violation of human rights. Yeah, but there is one factor, the resource of Iran itself. Iran has become such a promise, it is impossible to absorb it with military trust, you know. The same applies to Russia and China. The beginning of Iranian political regime, it is 1979, a revolution against absolute power, Republican values against monarchy movement, all this was reality in 1979 revolution in Iran. The same case when proof of fact that every revolution sooner or later leads to dictatorship. And from point of view, these new Axis countries' claims about revolutions at all in Ukraine, for example, it is pretty nonsense. And nonsense that from this list of countries, Iran, from point of view political structure of power, modest democracy, and because of definition of branch power, more than Russia and China, and of course more than North Korea. Russia, not treat certain for America, but pretty aggressive actor in the Europe and Caucasus until Turkey intervened in that issues. Russian political regime that in war now have some more signs of authoritarianism than Iran. Even Russian politicians know that Kurds is the instrument of Kremlin, they have no election, institution of power is subjected by the system, by the group of peoples, by the one person maybe, I'm not sure. And official direction of traditional political agenda against LGBT is not normal. Coming to power by non-election way. Putin was appointed by predecessor in 1991, and that means by decision of political elite, casual practice in Russia. War against Ukraine from 20 and 40, invasion in Georgia in 2008.
I have directed Secretary of Defense Bob Gates to begin a humanitarian mission to the people of Georgia headed by the United States military.
Moldovan conflict from 19th, list of crime pretty huge, list of responsibility empty. But how? How the international order to punish nuclear state with insane, really insane political agenda. For example, Medvedev's claims one of them political leaders is insane. The case when control over such vast country was established quietly. No one even protest. This is historical mentality of Russians, people of slavery as Ukrainian says. China. From our list of countries, most wise and clear state. Yeah, from our social media you may be hearing others think about China, and this is proof that their politics have global dangers for West world order, not more. Ancient culture, pretty wise philosophy, the economical increase, but there is another side of this: militarism, nuclear threat, Taiwan issue. The political agenda in China began from civil war, quite a reminiscent American scenario, but lead to another outcome. Fifth number, 1949, win of China People's Republic. We could split coming to power at 3 periods, from day of win on civil war to 1917. The political regime had established collectivism and socialist economy. Between 1976 and 1989, period of opening China to the world, especially economic sphere. Now China's political regime have period of economical increase guaranteed by development of production, I mean factories, more and more factories, and political clashes with the realities of the world, in particular the question of Taiwan belonging that was mentioned. So what unites them on the international stage as actors? Is it really a threat like Axis or the Second World War or not? First of all, obvious that international and geopolitical status all members, this informal unity of badass guy, is similar. It contributes to the integration of these countries, at all. Attempt to break the American order, as they themselves call it, in the international arena, contribute to the integration of the politics of this country. They have common goals to get ahead and leave the West behind. Political leaders of these countries have repeatedly said that the center of the world has shifted to Eurasia from the South Atlantic actor. How does it manifest itself in practice? By analyzing the diplomatic relation of these countries in the strategic sphere and by analyzing the statement on this matter by the leaders of these states. For example, a proposal of the Russian geopolitician and advisor to Putin, Yevgeny Primatsov, is to create geopolitical bloc, a triangle, which its theory has the characterized of the Rome-Tokyo-Berlin axis. How probable is this theory, and how this process is ongoing now? Another question. Essential mutual support between these countries against the background of their basic economic commonality are economic sanctions. These countries have created an informal alliance to avoid sanctions. They are trying to create their own economic system so that the leverage of the civilized world is not significant. Regarding the international order, all these least countries, except Korea, are absolutely against interference in their internal affairs of state. An absolute position means even when it comes to violation of people's rights or seconds of genocide. And this position is logical because in some places the regimes rely on repression, to a lesser extent China. 2020, Russian-Iranian declaration of the application of international law is the practical embodiment of all these settlements, all the theory of understanding of the principles of the world order by these countries and against America. The opposition of these countries to America is also reflected in their international politics in their own states. The propaganda of these countries, in particular Russia and Iran, and any opposition is called an American agent on defiance, and every concept of the America is considered hostile in the practical spectrum.
The DPRK and Iran also providing support. And all of this is fueling Putin's war machine as he attacks Ukrainians and threatens European security.
Therefore, we can conclude that the rejection of one own role in the modern world order and the attempt to avoid sanctions is the basic on which the Union rests, which seems to indicate the situational nature of dynamics of such an axis. And in addition to common interest, these countries have quite a lot of disagreements, especially in the context of the oldest member of this international gang, China, pretty wide sector, if not only one. First of all, not similar with geopolitical situation in Central Asia region between Russia and China, it calls into question the possibility of perspective such a deep relation. Countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan would be a bridging ship for clearly weaker geopolitical Russia. Incapability of the geopolitical request of earlier members of the informal alliance, we haven't such institutions as Western model of alliance NATO or European Union. Only some willing of Russia in local scale there is, not more. For example, in CCTO, but many of members of that kind of puppet of Russia. I couldn't mention China and Iran as member of this alliance, and the experience of Armenia showed to us so-called Article 5 not work in this organization. Russia haven't enough power for that. Another disagreement things is a position of China about national integrity. Look, international affair very complicated process, so that means your position had determined by your interest and international law, and you.com China's position in question of territorial integrity because of Taiwan have some disagreement with the Russian occupation of Ukraine and some plans fall apart Ukrainian integrity and souvenir by Russia. So in strategic scale, make against American world again, it's only perspective thing for unity of these countries in one threat for the NATO and EU. But dynamic of the world security showed to us that process of integration these countries in current geopolitical direction, it started and has a basic. A global security crisis led us to know stable international institution replaced by this national activity of state subject and the ability of sanctions to actually be implemented wanted and give the result because of alternative informal system of authoritarian state. It's not good. Let's call this sanctions avoidance system. Reason why war in Ukraine ongoing now, even after 3 years.
Let us defeat the spiderweb of tyranny between Putin's regime, Iran, China, and North Korea. We see their evil and their weaponry.
So China implemented her geopolitical direction because of certain goal, reunifying with Taiwan. In situation with Russia, certain goal is overthrow the Western international order in Europe. Expansion NATO to east of Europe is not only cause for action of Russia, but not true at all. In challenging situation, USA is real threat in achieving their strategic goals. And of course, without the country that is in the first place in terms of the size of the economy, China, this axis haven't a strong foundation for being in a long-term scale. Only as consequences of burning world in fire it might be. But all this about perspective of like NATO organization in other side of the world, in another sphere of cooperation, they already have some integrations. If talk about another member of this axis, Iran and South Korea, first one having the conflict of interest with China or Russia, and ideologically it's soaked in hatred to the West order. South Korea, last actor from this axis, they have a nuclear weapon, they're intentional around to reunification with one Korea, but so many issues at the low level of industry and economy at all, not effective rule of political system, produce their threat to the world, only in some regional scale. The only one that they couldn't give to the axis, pretty smallest contribution, But the Western world should be alarmed by the presence of in human being of integration process of political opponents. It's really a bad as sink, I guess. Let's talk about what they had managed to implement already. Fundamental functions of this system is replacement of economic and industrial potential in case of urgent need in certain situation. For example, when Iran needs some missiles or some missing spare parts of their production because of international sanctions, Russia gave it to them. Between 2022 and 2024, Russia have tremendous needs in some weapons because of war in Ukraine. Iran gave them Shahed drones. Korea gave them some ammunition in exchange for the resource that they need. This way implemented articulation of missing resource between their countries. This is how sanctions are systematically circumvented, and which is why sanctions only shift to logistic but not work by the true way. The next reason of effective system of bypassing sanction, the West sell as all necessary things to other members of the system, understanding that it will also get to the sanctions country through them. For example, they could have tried with China and give them some resources that Russia needs for war, etc., etc. And they have a direct reason not to do it, because of how international bureaucracy at work and because capitalism system being in the world. Ideologically and geopolitically, this union is a fact, but its institutional materialization will be determined by some political process. For example, the financial and material mechanism for bypassing sanctions appeared after the introduction of sanctions in these countries due to political situation. This will predict that only in the case of direct global escalation will the union as a real geopolitical bloc with so-called Article 5. And military support, etc., etc., and direct invasion. In peacetime in global sense, the interests of the Axis member intersect, which preclude their absolute integration on the international arena and the strategic scale. But the presence of cooperation in the regional scale, Syria, the war in Ukraine, Palestinian-Israeli issue, indicate that the monopolar world of the West is being challenged by this axis. As I had been said at the beginning, the world is one of verge of new integrative process. The West having capability to avoid these changes.